Okay, the debate has already started.
Before we came on, it was like this.
Yep. We're like, okay, like 1 second below before. Okay, we're going to talk about population, and there's a lot to talk about. But I want to begin by saying that the population in the United States, we are finding out that it is below replacement level. I have read about this topic, I've written about it, and we saw this coming. We were at replacement level, like, I don't know, 10 years ago for sure, but we kept dropping, and we saw that coming. So let's just take a look at some of the charts we have here, some of the statistics. So this takes us from 1900 to 2021. And there were a couple times, like World War I, the Spanish flu, where you did see a dip in the population. Like that first dip is the Spanish flu, and then the second dip is World War II. I guess it helps if the men are away, that, you know, the population is going to go down. But when they came back, then you had the baby boom.
Yeah.
Lots of children.
And to be clear, this graph is the population change, not the actual population.
Correct.
So we're not sitting in 21 at almost zero population.
Yes.
Let's be clear about that.
Replacement.
Except we are. But that you're right, though. Let's one graph at a time, right? So we are below replacement now, but we're looking at the change. So, right, Amy, thank you for pointing that out. So we see how it's gone up and down. And it has gone down more in the last year, 2021, than it has since, you know, back in
World
the
War II.
1900s. Yeah, well, right.
That was the last
The
spike.
percentage, well, it's gone down even lower, as you can see. Okay, let's go to the next chart. Now, this is, we're going to kind of move along here and talk about a number of different things. Because in the United States now, we are below replacement level. Replacement level is considered 2.1, so that the population is just staying at a steady level. Otherwise, you're getting older. If you have more older people than younger people, you're not at replacement level. Now, in the United States, here are the states that are still having, you know, some growth. And I'm going to explain here, this is just overall growth. This is not necessarily fertility levels, so we are kind of doing a little bit of apples and oranges here. But I thought you would think it's interesting because these are the states that are growing. Now let's look at the states that are shrinking. And guess where North Dakota is? We are in a shrinking state. And there's a couple things going on there. So look at the percentage of decline. We are below replacement. We are shrinking states. Now there's a couple things going on here. Is the fertility rate in North Dakota dropping? Yeah, I do my hometown. Somebody told me we have the same number of houses, but we used to have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. Now we have 1 or 2 kids in those houses. So our fertility rate is going on, but this also represents people leaving the state. So like I said, a little bit of apples and oranges.
This is general population. This isn't births.
Right.
Because I know when I moved to North Dakota, I thought North Dakota was one of like the fastest growing, but that was during the oil boom, right? There was a huge influx of people. So now with the oil not being
migrant.
Yeah, so now people are leaving. But I know for when I first moved here, it was like hotcakes. There wasn't enough housing. You couldn't get a phone put in your house. You couldn't get cable put in your house. I mean, it was crazy.
Because we had a little bit of a boom.
Yep.
Yeah, other states maybe had unemployment and couldn't sell houses, but it was the opposite here.
Well, and I mean, not to get political, but it's very interesting to see that some of the largest growth spurts are Texas and Florida, and some of the biggest population declines are blue states.
I thought that too. So there's a combination of things going on there. First of all, the fertility rates are dropping in the urban areas and the bigger cities, but they're also political, where either people are moving to the blue states or they're moving to the red states, and they're moving away from, like, California. A lot of people are like, I am out of here. This state is crazy and I don't want any part of it.
And when you say fertility rates, can you explain that? Like, do you mean they're just having less children, or they're not, like, all of a sudden women are sterile, right? Like, not like that.
It's all
Can
of
you
that.
Explain that.
Fertility rates is how many children a woman is having in her lifetime.
Okay.
And so let's look at one more thing, and then we can get into our little debate. So, okay, well, we'll do this too. So this is really important. Look at the yellow areas. The yellow areas represent the same amount of density of population as the red areas in the United States. And this is why the Electoral College is so important. Otherwise, the big cities on the East Coast and the West Coast would basically dominate everything that's done in this country if it's just one person, one vote for the president, and you didn't have the Electoral College. And that's why our founding fathers said, wait a minute, we know in the rural areas that they shouldn't necessarily be governed just by what's going on in the urban areas. So a lot of people that think, oh, overpopulation, are just in overcrowded cities. Anybody who flies over the country, you guys have done that. Have you ever flown or driven and you go from state to state and there's nobody here? And you think, what's with those people saying?
When I drove up here, there was tumbleweeds, and I was like, why is there water in the fields? Like, I didn't and there were horses, and it was beautiful, and I didn't see people for hours.
Right. Or growing up in Alaska, you knew what gas stations to stop at because you know that a gas station isn't going to be for another 8 hours. And when I moved down here, I actually thought, wow, there's a lot of little gas stations. This is great. You don't have to plan ahead.
And when I came from St. Louis, I'm like, where's a McDonald's? Where's a Walmart? Like,
and that's interesting because there's vast areas in our country that are not crowded, that that people live in rural areas. It's just that so many people have congregated in the big cities that there's this mindset. And they began 100 years ago saying there was overpopulation, and there isn't. There never has been. And now we're below replacement level, and there could be a lot of problems that come. So I'm going to throw one more thing out, and then we're going to get into a little bit of a debate. Is the Pope has recently come out, and he was talking about St. Joseph as our example as a father. And he also talked about that there's a lot of couples now, instead of having kids, they're having cats and dogs and pets, and that it's to their own detriment, and that it breeds a certain level of selfishness, and that we become better when we have children, and that it's good for us, it's good for the world. And the national media, mainstream media, picked up his comments. And a lot of people, so I'm thinking we can do better. We don't have to just be wrapped up with ourselves. People should be open to having children. And you guys had a different perspective. Why don't you share?
Oh gosh, I completely disagree. I think that if you want to have a child, have a child. If you want to have two, have two. If you feel pressured by your religious leader, your husband, your partner, to have more than what you feel safe as a mom having, I definitely disagree with that. And my heart goes out to women in this world that religiously are being coerced into having more children than what they feel comfortable with. Is it selfish not to have children? Maybe religious-wise, but I don't think it's selfish to choose. I guess in essence, for the verbiage, yes, it is selfish to do what you want. However, not every person should be a parent. If you don't feel comfortable being a parent, don't be. If you feel comfortable being a dog mom, be a dog mom. There's going to be plenty of people having kids, and it doesn't have to be you. That's my 2 cents.
We won't have enough time for mine before break.